Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Billy Watson TV. It gives me great pleasure on the Sunday afternoon to have our returning guest on, the awesome Mike Williams, Mr. Sage of Quay. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing well, Billy. Thank you again so very much for having me back on your show.
No worries, it's always a pleasure to have you on. We've got a lot to chat about, and every time we have a 2 hour conversation, it feels like there's always about 8 hours more we could continue.
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about two kind of topics today. First of all, congratulations on releasing your new album.
Thank you.
So you've got a new album out. This is your third one. The previous ones were Hollow Moon and Leaving Dystopia.
Yes.
So in the past one, you've kind of changed the model for this one. You've been releasing the tracks individually, and then once you've released the last one, which was the name of the album, No More Gods,
Right.
as a single, then you've called it an album and you've made it available for purchase, yeah?
Yeah, I seem to be on a 5 year increment of time as far as releasing albums. So what I didn't want to do with No More Gods, of course, I didn't know that was going to be the title of the third album. Like you said, what I was doing was I would write the songs and then I would release them as singles. And then my plan was when I accumulated 10 songs and I would compile it into an album. And that's the album that we're going to talk a little bit about today, No More Gods.
Yeah, it was. And then later on, we're going to talk about the latest Jordan Maxwell interview that you put online and kind of some of the topics that come up from that. So, yeah, we'll start with the album first of all. I was going to ask that. Do you kind of write each track as it goes, or do you have a collection of songs that you've written and you kind of choose each one to produce? Do you write, kind of record, produce, then write the next one like that? Or is it kind of got a collection of ideas that you kind of pick from to produce each one?
Yeah, it's pretty much I'll write a song and then I'll complete it, produce it, and
Right.
then I'll release it. How the songs come about, that varies. Sometimes a particular lyric will come to me, like I might get the first sentence of a verse or whatever, or I might think of a catchy title and then I'll build the rest of the lyrics around that title. Um, as an example, the title track, No More Gods, originally started out as an acoustic
Mm.
song.
Right.
And I actually went down that path, Billy. And then as I was doing the demos, because what I do is I just record to my hard drive on my computer into my microphone. It's really very simple. And I thought to myself, you know what? I think I need to write another rocker. I think there's enough acoustic based songs on the album. And so I switched it up. And it was one of those moments in time where I sat down with the guitar, probably within about an hour or so. I had the basic song structure down, and then from there you build upon it. So yeah, so how it comes, sometimes the music comes, sometimes bits and pieces of the lyrics come, but generally speaking, the way I work it is I take on one song at a time until I complete it.
Yeah, and do you think your production is getting better with each album because you're not just writing the song, the guitar riff and singing the song. You're doing all the production, and when people listen to it, I mean, it's quite amazing to me for one man to put all that together and do all the other stuff you do and release Beatles presentations and stuff like that. So it takes a fair amount of effort. Um, and yeah, do you feel like how did you get into the production side of things? Does that come through the aid of the computer and technology? Does that aided your songwriting, or have you always been in the studio back in the old style as well?
Yeah, so going back into the late 70s, into the 1980s, I was actually I had a band and we were writing our own stuff, and we would go to back in the day to studios.
Right.
So we were going to 8-track studios, and our big dream came true when we wound up at Workshop Recording Studios in Queens, New York. They're no longer in business. I think Edgar Winter recorded there. So, but in any case, that was 16 tracks. So we thought we had made the big time, but 16-track recording.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was expensive
Yeah.
to record 8-track or 16-track.
And were you going to start
And
learning it yourself, or did you not have a producer or something?
no, we had we had a sound engineer, and the sound engineer was not only engineering, but he was also producing. So he would ask what it is that we were looking for, what kind of sound, and he would play around with different effects and so on, and until we thought that that's what we wanted. But it's interesting back in the day because we were young guys, and we didn't have a lot of money. We always had to pool our money together. So, you know, it was one of those things where you went into the studio, we were well rehearsed. That's the thing, you know, studio time is expensive. So you can't go in there and just, you know, experiment and jerk around. You've got to nail it. So, you know, we would nail the takes pretty quickly, probably between 5 and 10, because we were always rehearsing. But the clock was always ticking. And when the clock is ticking, the dollars are ringing up. And so, you know, we got to a point where the production was pretty close to what we wanted. Were there times when we wanted something different, something more? Yes, but we ran out of money. You know, so we had to just, you know, cut and run at that point, and that was the early days. And then so we were going to studios, physically going there and working with engineers.
And what was the point of that? Was that to release your own records, or just for a memento, or were you trying to make it famous and send them away to companies and things like that?
Yeah, we were trying to writing our own stuff. We were very naive. I will say that up front. We were trying to secure a recording contract. We were a good band as far as we were very tight because we were very well rehearsed. Um, and then it got to a point where we all kind of had to go get quote real jobs, right? Because the music wasn't making any money for us, and so then it switched to if we can get our songs published, somebody else can record them. That's fine, but we can write the music, and we would be songwriters and get the songs out that way. Um, you know that was extremely difficult as well. I had a couple of small publishing companies that were interested back in the day, and I was in New York at the time, and I was working in Manhattan, so there were still a lot of publishers, and you know, Capitol had an office in New York as well, but they didn't want unsolicited material. So if you didn't have an agent, if you didn't have a manager, and I mean an agent or a manager that is actually networked and connected into their system, right? So
Yeah.
if you didn't have that, then all bets were off. You were essentially uh, wasting your time, even though you didn't know that. So we were sending out demo tapes to all of the major record labels back in the day, and the tape would come back to us unopened, and this would come back from Capitol, RCA, MCA, just pick a label, and stamped on the front of the envelope, it would say, "We do not accept unsolicited material."
Yeah. Quite happening.
So that was a shot of reality for us. And we were all young guys in our early 20s, going into our mid 20s.
You've read all the rock and roll stories about Brian Epstein finding the Beatles and all this kind of stuff, and it can happen to anyone. Your music's good enough, you can make it.
No, yeah, right. That's right. And it just doesn't work that way. In fact, I did an interview with a DJ. He goes by Z-Man, and he's with Artist First Radio. It goes back about, I don't know, maybe about a year and a half ago. I did the interview, maybe a year and a half. And we talked about it because he was doing the same thing I was doing. We're about the same age, you know, and we talked about how much we didn't know. We were just so naive about how the music industry really works, you know. And so in the 1990s, what happened was my brother and I just got, you know, sick and tired of spinning our wheels. My brother he played a lot of bass, keyboards, and drums. Uh, we act, we actually had another drummer, Max Smith. And Max, if you're listening to this, buddy, I don't know where you are these days. His real name is Brian Smith, and he ended up as Max Smith. So if he's listening to this, reach out to me. Uh, so it was really three of us. So Max would drum. I was doing basically all of the songwriting, the guitar work. My brother Paul was playing bass and keyboards, and he also, like I said, played drums. So we were essentially a three-person group, and but I thought we were very good, and we were very tight, and we were very creative, and we played well off of each other. But in the 90s, what happened was Max, we lost touch with Max, and then it was just my brother and I. And my brother lived in Maryland at the time, and he had a 4-track studio downstairs in his house. And it was a very nice studio. And my brother is extremely good with electronics, Billy. I
Right.
mean, he can wire anything. he would blow my mind sometimes. He'd make these boards, and I just look at it and think to myself, I have no idea how you know how that thing works, but he did. And so we spent a number of years where I would write the songs, and then I was in New York, and then after that I was in North Carolina, so I would drive down or up to Maryland for a long weekend, and we would sit down and we would bang the songs out, and we did quite a number of songs that way. But at that point, we weren't sending the songs out for publishing or anything. We just liked, as musicians and songwriters, we just liked doing it. So
Yeah.
we said, well, we're just going to be creative and write songs, and we're not going to care about whether the songs get distributed or published or whatever. We just did it for our own personal fulfillment.
Yeah, well, kind of creativity out of you, isn't it? It has to come out. If you don't, then you get depressed and start drinking and stuff.
Yeah, well, some of the most creative stuff that we did was back during that 1990s period, because that was really the first time when we didn't have to pay for studio time. We could sit there as long as we wanted to play around with, whatever sound effects or whatever instruments we wanted to play around with and see how it came out.
Try and be George Martin.
So, yeah, exactly. It was the Beatles 67 through 70. And then there was a period of time when I was still playing guitar, but the recording had kind of ceased. And this was mainly due to just, shifts in life, married, having a child. My job in the corporate world was very involved. So a lot of my time went to work. And, as I mentioned, I was still playing guitar and all, but I wasn't laying down any music. I would periodically still write a song, but it really didn't go anywhere. And it wasn't until 2011 that I decided that enough of not doing the music anymore, that I've got to get back into it, because it's just wired into my DNA. And that's when I started working on the first album, Leaving Dystopia. So what I did,
Sorry, was that around the time you discovered Paul is dead as well? Yeah.
I just, well, the whole Paul, I knew the whole Paul is dead story, the conspiracy going back to when I was in high school back in 1976 or so. Because it was at that point I was a junior in high school. I pulled together a lecture. Our school back in the day, our high school was very progressive. It allowed the students to bring in guest speakers, and they can do seminars and lectures. So I brought my friend Adam's brother in, Doug. Doug was like 4 or 5 years older than us, and he knew everything about the Paul is Dead, all the backwards mask clues on the albums and all the album clues. He knew everything. So, and I was fascinated by it. And so I asked Doug if he would come in and present, and he did. I think I might have told you this story. I've told it on other shows. And so I was putting up these flyers in my school, and I'm thinking, like, nobody's going to show up to this thing, right? And when Doug was ready to present, we had a packed classroom, standing room only, and it was a lot of fun. But back in the day, I just thought that the whole Paul is dead conspiracy was nothing more than a clever, witty marketing ploy.
Yeah.
To sell records, and something, you always looked at the Beatles as being very creative and innovative, and this was their way of having a little bit of fun.
So it's like artists, playing the game with the audience, but really they're doing it for real.
They were doing it for real. Yeah. I didn't realize it until 2016 when I bought the first edition of Memoirs. And in fact, before I bought that book, Sophia Smallstorm sent me an email about this whole Paul is Dead thing. Somehow it had cropped up on her radar, and she asked me about it, and I told her it was total nonsense, and then about a year later, there I was, proving myself wrong, that it wasn't nonsense, that Paul had been replaced, and as we know, Billy Shears has been front and center now for the last 57 years. So, but yeah, so then 2011, what I did was I went out and I bought a Tascam 24-track digital recorder. It's a 2488 Neo. Yeah, it's right over here. And I had to teach myself how to use it, which wasn't that difficult, because when I was in the studio doing analog, it's basically very much the same, and so I got ramped up pretty quickly, and I cranked out Leaving Dystopia. And then 5 years after that, I did Hollow Moon. And then 5 years after that, I released No More Gods.
Aye, great work. And yeah, so you're still. Well, let's go through then. No More Gods,
Yeah.
because I might be wrong here, but it seems to be on YouTube that the song "Breathe" is actually the last track on Leaving Dystopia. Is that right? Or
It is the last track on Leaving Dystopia if you are buying it off of Amazon. The reason why I did that was because the original album, which you can still listen to on SoundCloud or Reverb Nation, I mean, and Leaving Dystopia has been completely remastered. So I did that back in December. Some of the tracks I did about 2 or 3 years ago, but I finished up all of the remastering of the first album this past December.
because I was going to say, I listened to them recently, and that's why I asked you about the production, because I noticed the new album. Maybe I was listening to an older version of Leaving Dystopia.
Yeah, you may have been listening to the older version, because when I remastered it, I spent a lot of time just expanding really the dynamics of the song. And
Yeah.
I think it really refreshed all of the tracks. But on TuneCore, that's my publisher, when I uploaded the remastered version, I included Breathe and not Working Class Hero.
Right.
And the reason why is because there are mechanical licenses required to include a cover song on your album. And I do have mechanical licenses for Working Class Hero when I first released the album, but I didn't want to go through the process again. And so I put Breathe on as a bonus track. But if you want to listen to the original lineup of songs, the set list, if you will, for Leaving Dystopia, if you go to my SoundCloud site or my Reverb Nation site, the entire album as it appeared initially back in 2012, 2013 is all there.
Okay, that clarifies that one. So this track "Breathe" I thought was a great track, because to me it was one of the best songs, or if not the best, kind of song about the masks and stuff. It was obviously inspired by that. And again, you can use language as a poet in there. So it's like, take off that mask. It's not just the, physical mask that people put on their face. It's the
Right.
mask people wear. And yeah, I thought it's quite straightforward and quite a thing. Simple words like "breathe." It's just, it's quite a lot in that word.
Yes. Yeah. And I wrote that song and I released it back in December of 2020. In fact, it's the oldest song on the current album. It's really the first song I wrote for the album. It's probably a better way to say it. And I wrote that song because I was just so frustrated and just so disgusted with what I was seeing, what was going on in the world. And it didn't take me very long to write that song, Billy. The riff I actually had for a long time. There are actually two separate guitar riffs in there. They sound similar, but they're not exactly the same. And so I had the riff for a while, and then I finally sat down and I stuck the two riffs together, and I had the lyrics. Like I said, I wrote them pretty quickly, and then it was just a matter of recording.
Yeah. Some good words as well, like that one, "smell," because we weren't seeing a lot of smells, and I think definitely human psychology has been affected by COVID. I think post-traumatic stress disorder, or whatever we want to call it.
Right.
There's a lot less smiles and carefree joy going around, and just feel the love inside. It's what people don't do when they've got too much fear getting blasted at them.
Right. That's
So,
right. But it's a very popular song. I mean, I get the analytics from my publisher, TuneCore. It's still downloaded and streamed a lot. So I'm very happy that people are playing it, listening to it.
Yeah, if you want, I can bring it up and can play samples just now if you want.
Whatever you'd like to do. Yeah, it's whatever you'd like to do.
We'll play a little section from each track so people can get a flavour of them. Just bring this up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, there's the eye, Billy. I guess we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah. So you want to talk about the album cover? Just bring it up briefly just now.
Yeah. So Billy and I talked about this, folks, before the show started, and actually we've had discussions before about the symbolism, and we'll get more into it after we go through the album. But what the controllers have done was they have commandeered symbols, spiritual and metaphysical symbols, and they have used them as if they are proprietary to them.
Yeah, the pyramid.
And the all-seeing eye is really the eye of providence. And like I said, I'll get more into this. And I know a lot of people are frightened or scared or get worried when they see the eye or they see the pyramid or the eye within the pyramid, like my first album. And so what the controllers have done, for those of you who feel like that's an evil symbol, is they have successfully conditioned you to have that superstition. And I'll explain more in a bit, Billy. I guess what we'll do is we'll go through the album first, and then we'll get into the symbolism on the album cover.
Yeah, just when I remember I went to see Left Field at Glasgow Barrowlands last week, and they had eyes popping up all over the place, inside the pyramid and everything. And obviously you think, oh, Illuminati, but that's just again the condition. But again, I know the both sides of it. Like
right.
Let's have a wee play off the first track here. Yeah, we sample there, it's quality that. So, yeah, we'll go into the next one. So the next one is called Rainy Day.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll play a wee sample of that, and then we'll come back and chat about it. So that's a wee sample from that one. That's quite a simplistic one lyrically, and it's about, well, somebody's trying to change you, it seems like, and you're quite depressed, but you just want to be left alone, and they need to go and work on themselves, basically sort yourself out.
Yeah, so it's one of the two songs that my wife and I co-wrote. Right. We co-wrote Rainy Day and Don't Let Go. I almost forgot the title of my own song. And so my wife wrote the verse and the actual chorus, and I wrote the bridge. So she was writing that song. She wasn't writing it to me. She was just sat down, and I think she said she was waiting for a phone call from her daughter, my stepdaughter.
And is she writing the lyrics and the melody? Is that what you mean by writing the whole section?
She wrote the lyrics and she had the melody, and I put the music behind her lyrics and melody. So she sang it, that's the melody, and then I put the music behind it. But I did write the bridge as a response to what she was saying in the verse. So I thought it was, I like the song a lot. Like I said, lyrically, it's very straightforward, but I thought it was, I had a lot of fun with it because she wrote this and my bridge was a response to what she was saying. Yeah. And so I thought it was a good play off of each other, but I really like the song. It's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, I do like a good call and response type thing going on in a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So the next one, Billy Pepper, Mr. Shears himself, which he gets a mention at the start. So let's play a little bit of this one.
Hey there, Mr. Shears, I see you wrote a book. I heard about the room
That's got a kind of 60s feel to it, would you think? That kind of happy
Intentionally
kind of,
too.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, he had the Beatle bass line and all of that. Yeah, that's that's really my Paul is Dead McCartney Beatles conspiracy song.
Yeah, well, it's kind of how you woke up to it. Kind of, you heard about the rumours, so you thought you'd take a look. But he has wrote this book, but he is still lying about it at the same time. So
Yeah.
But the same, it's that kind of clever lying, kind of, what do you call it? The Masonic way of talking cleverly.
Yeah, masterfully speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what Billy's doing is he's got two narratives. He's got the narrative that goes out to the public, the gullible public, and he's got the narrative that is for those of us that know what the real story is.
Yeah.
But since his bread is buttered, by far on the other side, where it's the public and they buy into the whole Beatle narrative and all that stuff, he's going to continue to play into it because it makes him an awful lot of money.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously contracted to, and various other things will come out, or whatever's guns to his head. I've been reading through the book itself, actually, recently, and he still, although he's obviously revealing some stuff, he still talks about, John wrote this, and the old Paul wrote this, and, and he's come into it at this time. Like, although he's not saying about the songwriters and stuff like that, you've went to the belief now that they didn't write the music, they were just essentially karaoke singers. But in the book, he's still giving credence to the old Paul being the genius and working through him.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
That's the official narrative, right? That's the narrative that keeps the Beatle story alive. It's the Cinderella story. So people want to believe that. It makes them feel good. Like I said, Billy, you and I talked about it. It's a really good story. It's a feel-good story. I mean, who doesn't want to embrace it?
Yeah.
To think that these four guys coming out of Liverpool hit the big time. They hook up with Brian Epstein, a record store manager, and then they wind up signed to the EMI label under the tutelage of George Martin, and then unparalleled fame, success. It's a great story. It really is. It's not true.
Just when you said EMI there, I thought of somebody I've seen, a comedian I know who was outside, must have been maybe the shop in London where Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren had. It was called Sex, that he says the Sex Pistols were formed.
Yeah.
And then just obviously they had the song about EMI Records, but that was a big label. I mean, they're not getting signed to them by accident.
No, EMI was a huge label back in the day. It was huge. And it was also connected into the military industrial complex of the British.
But even though they had that party there and they sacked them that day, do you think even that could have just, well, who knows? Do you think they got their fingers burnt, and then, or that's just part of the narrative of the whole, these guys are rebels? Because the things like the Bill Grundy show and then getting sacked from EMI and then going on the river and the police coming on, that's all adding to their myth, and starting the whole punk era and then giving everyone the idea that, again, it's another revolution, it's the hippie revolution, that people have a voice, that you can get together and form these bands, and then all of a sudden this band's attacking the establishment and getting banned from number one and all this stuff. Do you think that's all been a big illusion? It's just like the gates have been that solidly shut. I mean, there's Bruce Springsteen playing in Edinburgh last week. In the past, I've been quite excited to maybe try and get a ticket, but this time after them not speaking out against the vaccine or that, I'm just like, who cares?
It's all scripted, Billy. It's all scripted because, look, if an artist or a band pisses off a major label, it could be over like that. Yeah, I mean, the word just goes throughout the industry, and that's that. I mean, you're yesterday's news. So any band that claims that they pissed off a label or they pissed off a particular, high-level producer or whatever, and then lands at another label and carries on with success, that's all scripted stuff. That's all supposed to happen. It's just there's a bunch of strings being pulled behind the scenes to move it along. Because like I said, if you did something, you said something, or you weren't rowing the boat in the direction in which you were told to row that boat, then it's just over.
Yeah.
You'll be back fixing flats in a gas station somewhere, you know? So, yeah, that's how it works. It's pretty much all orchestrated and engineered.
There's a comedian called Dapper Laughs who was on primetime ITV show and stuff like that. And I think he mentioned Philip Schofield and he was sacked for it. And now, 6 months later or something, the whole Philip Schofield thing has come out. So he's a little bit bitter, but, you know, he's went through his drinking phase. Now he's kind of sobering up and, you know, embracing the change. But basically, he's had to realise that the whole thing is a facade. And if you don't play that game, that you're out. Do you know much about the Philip Schofield thing that's kicking off in Britain?
No. Yeah.
Just this guy's been grooming a young boy from a young age, and it's like a next Jimmy Savile they're talking about.
Okay.
Of secrecy in this ITV this time instead of BBC. Anyway, lots of shenanigans going on. Let's move on to the next one called I Know. Let's play this a little bit, this one. Okay, so this seems to be about somebody, or no, it's just a feeling I got from this one was like somebody trying to be someone else almost to get your attention and to tease you, but actually they're hurt and damaged inside. And, you know, you can see them for who they are, but they can't almost see themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what the song is pretty much about. But it's not about anybody in particular. It's just that feeling where, you know, you interact or you meet people. It could be somebody in your life. It could be girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, or whatever. And they don't see what you see. Right. And, you know, if you're an objective bystander and you're observing what's going on, there's a disconnect within them about who they really are. And it's interesting. You know, what's really funny about that song? When I first released it, people thought it was a Paul is Dead song.
Right.
They thought I was singing about. They thought I was singing about Paul McCartney and Billy, which is not at all what I was singing about. So I got a chuckle out of that. But yeah, think of it as kind of a relationship song and how we've all experienced this, right? I mean, in our lives, like, you know, whether it be family member, friend, or whatever. We see things that they don't, and they could probably see the same thing about us.
Yeah, well, my first marriage, basically, I went down the reptilian route. And I was doing tits up for there. So, I'm sure there's a lot of people with the vaccine and stuff like that. The amount of marriages and stuff that, you know, that choice, I believe. Yeah, somebody was giving somebody ultimatums and that, you know. Yeah, take the vaccine or you're out of the house. And marriages and sons and daughters. Just previously, I was thinking on the last song, I made a note here, you mentioned 6 toes as well.
Yes, sometimes you have 6 toes, but who knows if that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the whole thing where there are some images out there with, quote, Paul McCartney with 6 toes. And I actually did a presentation or two on it going back a number of years ago. But I don't really know whether he has 6 toes or not. I have no idea if those images were doctored, because they doctor images all the time, yeah. You know, to put people on a wild roller coaster ride and have them spin their wheels. Personally, I don't care whether he has 6 toes or 5 toes, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm focused much more on, far more on the reason and the impact of the psychological operation overall. So the number of toes he has doesn't really
The reason I kind of
play
mentioned
into
it
that.
because I watched a video recently of this soldier who was in Afghanistan when he went in there, and says there's this big cave and there's this team of them, and they went in and there's this like 15-foot kind of red-haired bearded guy, looks probably like me, was in this cartoon. This giant that stunk really bad, and they speared one of their guys, and then they all shot it in the face, and it died in front of them. It was stinking, but he had 6 toes and 6 fingers and stuff like that. So, because that's like the Nephilim or something. So
Yeah, that's what a lot of people will write in comments when I did the presentation on the 6 toes, the Nephilim. Also, if I'm not mistaken, Marilyn Monroe had 6 toes on one of her feet and had the toe surgically removed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, there's lots of things about her being trans. Back in the day, some of these, maybe there was trannies in our midst for a long time. We've been conditioned for that.
Yeah.
So the next track is When You're Going to Get It, and this is for the people that don't understand why we're talking about 6 toes. Let's see why let's inspire them.
Sitting around, wringing your hands, making believe you don't understand. Gotta be a mama who carried the load, pulling you along that rocky road. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it? All those years when you didn't pay your dues, singing along to the little boy blues. When you gonna get it? When you gonna get it?
So this one to me is obviously about those kind of, a lot of young people these days, they kind of expect everything handed to them on a plate, and they don't see the world, just think, money falls out the sky, universal credit's coming our way, we're entitled to everything, and they don't pay their dues. They don't, realise that you've got to put effort in their life to get stuff out of it. So it's having to go at the young woke generation in general.
Yeah, it's exactly that, Billy, and it's for all of those folks, people that victimhood is their identity.
Yeah.
The old Eagles song, a victim of this, a victim of that, and that's what the song is about. If you don't pay your dues, if you don't do the right things, if you don't put your head down, if you don't persevere and work hard, what do you expect?
Yeah.
What do you expect your life to be? And that's not to say that people who work hard might not have hardships. I mean, we all have. But when you don't do anything and then expect something, in other words, if you don't work hard, you don't apply yourself, but you want the same things that Mike Williams and Billy have, and anybody else who's really applied themselves in life. And that's just not how it works. And that's what the song is about.
But there's an element there of kind of capitalism, you work hard and you get things you have to these days to earn money to lots of people don't want to play the game. And I don't think that's necessarily bad, but you could put your efforts. It's just being lazy and sloth-like.
Right.
Right. Whether you want to work in a job and to get these things, or you want to do something else, even go and climb mountains and live in, go and do something. A lot of people, again with the lockdown, I think had a lot of bad effect on young people staring at their phones in the house for a year and a half. And now that's their mode, basically. And, just the generation, they're getting a dodgy neck because they're just looking down all the time.
Right.
And, yeah.
It's not about
away from the real world,
Yeah, and the song is not about, and I'm not implying that, capitalism is great. What I'm saying is applying yourself, working hard. There's nothing wrong at all with working hard and trying to be very good at whatever it is that you do. Not mediocre, not substandard, not subpar, but to be very good at what you do. And, and it's the way I was raised. My father instilled in us that working hard, regardless of what it was, whether it was your job, whether it was a hobby, at school, apply yourself.
It's taking pride in yourself and taking pride in your work,
Exactly.
to do the best you can to the best of your ability. I mean, I got through a lot of school exams just doing what I needed to do, but you know, you didn't have a great deal of pride in that kind of stuff. But if you're doing something, I guess somebody's paying for you as a job, I
Right.
always take it as a responsibility, even though it's a minimum wage, but still you're getting paid to do it. So you might as well do it as best you can. Try not to, like right now. I'm going off work and I have to go back into these factories, and I'm trying not to bitch about it. I'm trying to be grateful for it.
Yeah.
Because it's taking the pressure off me trying to earn money other ways and say, right, I have to do this. So it's a perception when I go into work, how my day's going to be that day. I can feel pissed off, or I can say, well, be grateful and try and get on with these people and, you know, make the good of find what that's trying to teach you almost by doing that. And even if it's giving you the fuel and the anger to get out of it, then it's serving some kind of purpose. But at least you're got your integrity that you're paying the bills and you're doing something in this life to, you know, get by.
Yes, you're taking control of your own life.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are going to be peaks and valleys. There's going to be good times, bad times, and everything in between. But you know what it is that you have to do in order to keep yourself moving along. You know, and it's not always going to be a pipe dream for everybody. I mean, you know, I've had moments in my life, Billy, that they weren't good. You know, I had what I considered to be dark periods during my life, and I had to take stock in myself and figure out where I was going. Look in the mirror and say, "What are you doing?" You know, I mean, everybody's had that. You know, sometimes people will look at where you're at today and think that your entire life has been like this. No, that's not the case. There's an entire road that has been traveled to get you to where you are today. You know, so, and but some people look at it very simplistically, and then they draw in, you know, incorrect conclusions.
Yeah, just again, karma, instant karma. If people were got their karma come back to them quicker. I don't know if the universe is speeding up, but you know, as if it does, it would stop a lot of people doing bad shit if they got, you know, something happening quite quickly to them.
Yeah,
you believe in that? That's how the universe.
Yes, it's the law of cause and effect. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause, and that's just how it works. And if you don't believe it works that way, then you need to get a little smarter, because that boomerang, you throw it out there, it's coming back.
Yeah, a lot of it's not just the things you do; it's actually how you feel as well. You know,
Yes.
Our emotions and stuff are important, and almost your belief. You know, because
Right.
the mind has a very powerful influence over the outside world. Although we train just, I think, it stops at your skull. You know.
Yes.
But actually, thoughts have power, and you know, can change things.
Thoughts create everything around you. If you look around, if you're outside, take a look around, you know, building structures, fences, sheds, shovels. If you're in your office, take a look at your desk, your computer screen. Everything that you're looking at was created because somebody thought it.
Yeah.
It was
That's our
thought
job here, to
integration.
bring imagination into the world. And people, too many people are passive and not getting it because they're not playing their role in, they're not being the best they are.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. This one's called Tell Me. Okay, I'll sample from this.
Are you happy now you're older? I tried to love you, but you grew colder. Are you lonely in a place so far away? Time is slipping, it's just another day. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you need. I don't know what you love. Can you tell me, please? Tell me, please.
Yeah, so this one could be seen as a romantic thing, I think, but it could also just be about, I think, as poetry doing, your words can be like that Billy Pepper one. If people were interpreting that way, then let them do it, you know, that's the whole point.
Right.
of the music, but it does seem to be quite personal, that one, where you're drifting apart from somebody.
Yeah, so there's a personal aspect to this, and but it all ended very well. And we know this because I documented it with the song "Pretty Lady" on the album.
Yeah.
No, it's about we all have our challenges in life, and even challenges within relationships. You can love each other like there's no tomorrow. Um, and it's a matter of, I think, of setting the proper priorities and making sure that you get all of the little stuff out of the way. Just don't sweat that stuff, and get it back to basics. Get it back to love. Get it back to being happy, doing things together, having your very best friend as your wife, your partner. Just live your life that way. And so, so it's a very short song. I think it's only about 2 minutes or so. But, the one thing about when you write music, and I'm sure you know this, Billy, is the music, it reflects a moment in time. It reflects your mental state, your emotional state at that time. And so essentially what you're doing is you're documenting where you're at,
Well,
and
a lot of
on the
people don't.
timeline.
Like Van Morrison or something will say it's not him, but actually it probably is. But it's just words, and you're playing with words, and you're getting a feeling of that thing.
Yeah.
And you're expressing it in poetry and creating that thing so other people can relate to it.
Yeah.
Just that feeling, because that's a feeling, you've captured it, and then people relate to it, and then sing along to it. But it doesn't mean to say that's been a huge thing necessarily in anyone's life. It just could be an idea, a thought. John Lennon said the same, or Bob Dylan. You're just playing with words, really.
Yeah.
But it can affect your time, and some songs do obviously think, that person went through that, and it can make you feel closer to it as well. But at the same time, it's what you take out of the song, and people. I think it's one about communicating as well. It's like, I don't know what you want, kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me
what you want. I mean, it's just be straightforward with each other, right? Just be honest and sincere. And I'm not saying that there was insincerity or dishonesty there, but I'm just saying that we'll put it this way: we have to communicate better between the two of us, right? That's what we have to do. We have to communicate better, and not assume that the other person automatically knows what it is you're thinking.
But that can happen in relationships, living together. You can get take people for granted, or just not communicate the simple stuff. But then, you have to remember to, as you say, keep at it. Just take work as well.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I mean, my wife can turn the tables on this song and say to me, Mike, I don't know what you want, what you need, what you love.
Yeah.
Right. So
you're busy in your studio.
Yeah. She's really good with everything that I do. Thank God, So, but this was one of those songs where when I first released it, I debated whether I should actually release it as a single, because I felt like, it is kind of personal, But on the other hand, what happens is, as you said before, Billy, people interpret the lyrics, they internalize it as it pertains or resonates with them.
Yeah.
So this song can have a particular meaning to somebody else that can be very different from, what I intended when I wrote it. So, so I decided, what, let's just put it out there and, just let it be.
That lady we were talking about, she's going to come into the next two songs. She co-wrote this one with her. So let's play this one. Don't let go.
Of desperation come crashing in again, feeling the sensation. I need you to the end, don't you know? I need my baby, don't you know? I need my baby, don't let go. Assess the situation, the truth is plain to see. This abomination need my baby, don't let go.
Yeah, so that one's almost like following on from the last one. You know, you're drifting apart and then don't let go, I need you kind of thing. You're desperate at this point. Was that kind of just, again, the lyrics came out because of that?
You can interpret it that way, but I'll give you the how we put this together. First of all, all of the lyrics and the melody are my wife's,
Okay.
and then I just put the music to it. So what this song is about, like my wife is completely awake, so you know she's not walking the matrix at all. So the lyrics are really about the fact that we have each other and we are both on the same page as far as an understanding of what this reality is all about. And so we need each other. We need to stick together because together, that's how we're going to make it through this mess. And that's really what the song is about. But that's pretty much her song. And all I did was put the music behind it. And somebody might say, well, that's a big deal. Well, yeah, I mean, it's she had the melody, so all I had to do was put the music to the melody, you know, and I did all the guitar work and the bass and all that stuff. But that's pretty much her song.
So if somebody gives anyone a melody, they would put the same chords behind it, do you think? Or, you know, you still have to put the chord structure and stuff there?
Well, what I did was, you know, she sang this song. And by the way, I wanted her to sing this song. My wife has a very beautiful voice. She has a more of a heavier baritone type of voice. And I thought she would have been great singing this song. But I could tell that she was leery of that, so I wasn't going to push it. So I sang it. Yeah. So what I did was she would sing it, and then I was playing the acoustic guitar to it, and I would say, "What do you think? Is this where you want the song to go?"
Right.
And so you know, so she would say yes or no, and it was adjusted accordingly until she got what you know she felt that she was looking for, what the song sounded like to her in her head. And so what you hear there is what she was finally satisfied with. So it got the green light.
Cool. And she'll be getting the royalties for it on the big album.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's cool.
It's 10 cents.
Spotify could be less than that.
I know. Streaming revenue is anemic.
So let's talk. Let's play "Pretty Lady" for the lovely lady.
Here we are, you and me. It took some time for us to see, and now we're back where we belong. And that's the reason for this song. Pretty lady, I love you with all my heart. We had our ups, we had our downs. That rocky road turned us around. A little lesson from deep inside, telling us we need to try. Pretty lady, I love you with all my heart.
Yeah, so it's a very nice song, very uplifting after the last two are a bit more sad. So this one brings you up again and you found your pretty lady. That song reminds me of a song and it's really annoying me, that little chorus bit.
Does it really?
Yeah, I'm going to have to rake my brain. But
yeah, it's not complicated. You know, it's a typical, you know, chord progression.
Just a line, little baby, I love you with all my heart. That reminds me vaguely of something.
Okay, well, hopefully I don't get sued for copyright.
I'll tell you privately. There's not, you can get away with 5 notes or something like that.
Yeah, it's the song is in E, and it's just basically EAB, and then there's a the bridge moves to the relative minor, C sharp minor for E major. That's basically it. So it's really straightforward song, and yeah, this was a song about the fact that you know we pulled it back together again, and without getting into great detail because I do really want to keep my personal life personal, but I'll phrase it this way: when you have elderly parents as we both do, that can be a very stressful situation, especially when your elderly parents, when their health is not good.
Yeah, can imagine.
So in our case, what happened was, I was pulled in one direction, she was pulled in another, and it was just it was stressful. It was a very challenging time.
Yeah.
Both our parents are in their 80s. My mother's going to be 88 years old in July.
Right.
So, but
Where's she living just now?
my mom doesn't live very far from me.
Right.
We actually live in the same town. My stepdad, he passed away back in April of 2020,
Right.
and so it's been a lot of work to look after
Did your
mom.
mother take the job? Was she getting pressured into taking that?
No, because she's retired,
Right.
and she wasn't pressured to take it. In fact, she had hip replacement surgery going back about a year ago or so, and nothing was said about the shot. She went in, had the surgery,
Right.
nothing. So, from that standpoint, it was very good. But I know that I had a couple of people write me, and there's one email I remember. It was either an email or a comment on YouTube, where somebody said, I can completely relate to elderly parents and and the care that it takes and the time that it
Yeah.
takes to make sure they're okay. They're your mom and dad. So you
Yeah.
just can't leave them in the lurch. They looked after you for so many years, and now you've got to do what you've got to do.
You can't send them to Dignitas.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot of, unfortunately, vaccine injured these days are, going to Switzerland and stuff like that because they can't face, what they put themselves through, but it's another
Yeah.
story. Yeah, so that was kind of written in real time then, this album. So I'm assuming that you got back together and you got married around about this time then, or not long
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. So we had been together for a number of years, and then we, I looked.
I thought it was quite amusing a little bit in the song where you say, I met you for lunch, you're back in my life, now be my wife. I thought, Christ, he was fast.
Yeah, it's my wife is the love of my life, and she always has been. And there's no one better for me.
Yeah, well, you didn't know her from back in the day, so it's been an ongoing thing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
that came across a little bit in the song as well, in the lyrics. So we'll go on to the next one, Johnny Lightone. Let's have a play of this.
Hey, look over there, it's a shiny silver ship. Man, that's cool. Man, he's hip with his jet black hair and his big white smile. He lies to you, but he does it with style. He promises the moon with a sleazy little wink. His rattlesnake eyes tell you how to think. He's all glossed up and made for TV. Mr. Prime Time got you on your knees. Get in line, kiss the ring of Johnny Lightone. He's so fine, everybody sing Johnny Lightone.
Okay, Johnny Lightone. This one, I think is this one like about some kind of TV presenter or salesperson, one of the kind of guys who are talking shite.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's about anybody that is deceptive.
Yeah.
And kind of gives you that wink, right? A wink and a smile, but they don't. Yeah, they don't have good intentions. And I've had people write me and ask me, is Johnny Lightone Lucifer? Is Johnny Lightone a politician? Is Johnny Lightone an entertainer? I said, Johnny Lightone is whoever you interpret Johnny Lightone to be, because there is no lack of people who lie and deceive.
Yeah.
And try to sell us a bag of goods. So Johnny Lightone is about this reality. It's about how it's all lies and deception, and how they try to sell us a bag of goods that are no good. And we've got to see through it. And that's why in the chorus, I talk about everybody, kiss the ring of Johnny Lightone, everybody sing Johnny Lightone. And what that's about is the pop culture. That's the culture where people are idolizing and worshiping entertainers and celebrities and politicians and Silicon Valley quote icons and so on. So and the song is really about getting away from that, pulling the plug on that nonsense.
I'm sure there was an artist called Johnny Lightning back in the day, which anyway. But basically, yeah, there's so much people out there, as you say, Bono and U2 and all these people that want to do good and all just full of crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all deep state operatives who have a job to implement and fulfill the agenda. That's what they're doing. And they're Johnny Lighttones.
Yeah. Like even people like REM, somebody pointed out that when REM, when the Republicans were in power, they were quite political. And then when Democrats were in power, they weren't political at all. It was just like,
Yeah.
you know, again, they have their agendas. So, yeah, and on that kind of topic, there's another one that we have to kind of sets up the next one, No More Gods. The belief in false idols and that kind of stuff. Let's check it out.
Hey you, what you doing down here? On your knees, paralyzed in fear, sound asleep, mesmerized every day. Spin your wheels, run in place, fade away. No more gods, no more heroes, no more gods, no more heroes. Hey you, so you think you're in control? Simple minds, lobotomized, big black holes. Presidents, glamorized in decay. Apathy, silly fools in my way. No more gods.
Yeah, you've also got quite a few good guitar solos on this that we never got to, but people can go on YouTube and find this whole thing to play, you know, No More Gods by Mike Williams. And where's the album available to buy while I'm on the topic?
You can buy it at Reverb Nation. So if you go to my hub website, sageofquay.com, you'll see the links to Reverb Nation, SoundCloud. But I'm selling it on Reverb Nation. I think it's also up for sale on Amazon. But go to my Reverb Nation site. It's a lot easier just to get the song there. You can just download the tracks.
Yeah, so obviously it's going to No More Gods, but that's just a direct, you know, call to humanity to lift their head at their arse and, you know, wake up. Stop
Well, it goes
worshipping
back
these
to
false heroes.
it's kind of connected, Billy, back to Johnny Lightone. So,
Yeah.
you know, who are the gods? Well, the gods are these people that you've given your authority up to. You've disempowered yourself by trusting in and embracing your rock stars, your artists, your entertainers, your celebrities, your politicians. Yuval Harari, the mini me of Klaus Schwab,
Right.
he constantly runs around saying that the controllers, the World Economic Forum, are achieving godlike status. No more gods, and no more heroes, because people put these celebrities, these athletes, these entertainers on a pedestal,
Yep.
and they'll say, "Oh, they're my heroes. The Beatles are my heroes. The Rolling Stones are my heroes. Donald Trump is my hero." And there's all of this idolizing and this worshiping that's going on. And when you do that, you're giving up your authority, and you're disempowering yourself. And so I've always said, if you want to worship somebody, worship yourself, which means invest in yourself. Invest in yourself spiritually, physically. You know, do all the things that you need to do as a human being. You are a divine spirit, a divine soul. And the job of the controllers is to take your hands off your steering wheel, to peel your fingers off your steering wheel and throw you in the trunk somewhere, and allow them to drive your car, to drive your vehicle. And and the car and the vehicle is a metaphor for your life. And it's a battle of will. It's a battle between their will and our will. And we've got to stand firm. We got to stand strong, and we've got to push back and apply our will, because clearly what they're doing is not a good thing. And many of us know this, and we can't roll over. So that's what No More Gods is all about. It doesn't mean no more God, no more creator source. It doesn't mean that. It's within the context of how the controllers are selling their bag of goods.
Yeah,
right? Because
using the media and the tools that they've got to obviously appear more godlike, because they've got the technology and all this stuff.
Yeah, and you talk about the technology. It goes back to maybe you and I talked about this. I know Crow and I did the series American Gods, and it talks about the new gods are the technology gods, where they are usurping your spiritual and physical energy, because people are constantly interacting with and have their face glued to the phone or their computer or whatever, games. And they are drawing away your consciousness. They're drawing away your focus, your concentration, and your attention, and they're harnessing it. Because as you're doing that stuff, you're docile. You're not thinking. You're not being critical in your thinking process. You're not being creative. You're not doing any of these things. You're basically just sitting there, just like a lug nut, and they're capitalizing on it, and they're pushing through their agenda because people are sleepwalking. And so that's what the song is really, that's the point it's trying to hit home. Stop sleepwalking and take charge of your life, and let's get humanity back on track.
Yeah, so that's made up the album. How many tracks are on it in total?
10 tracks.
Is it 10? 10 tracks, yeah. So basically, yeah, you've put that out there and you've had good feedback. And is there anywhere, do you do any gigs for this kind of music, or is it all just online?
Yeah, no gigs. It would be very difficult because I would have to get a band together. I don't have a band; it's just me. Everything you hear on the CD and the music is me, with the exception of the drums. That's a drum track that I have an Alesis and a Zoom rhythm drum machine, and that's what I use for the drumming. I have to program it, but everything else is me.
In theory, could you not come up with a backing track and just put your electric guitar and vocals on it and play a gig?
Yeah, I guess I could do that, but the thing is, Billy, it's time. It really is. It's time. I have a lot of stuff going on. I just talked about our elderly parents, and we have our grandson is 10 months old now. And so we spend a lot of time with the baby. My wife right now, as I'm here, she's outside expanding our garden. So, we're working on that, and that's coming along. So we have a lot of things that we're doing outside of the music. So for me, the music these days consists of writing it when I can, releasing it, and then just move forward. It has been well received. The album, the title track especially, has done very well on SoundCloud. I think I've got something like almost 21,000 listens on the title track alone.
Cool.
And a few thousand listens here on both my YouTube channels. It's done well on Reverb Nation, which is my other music site. So I'm pleased, to be honest with you. As an independent artist, it's difficult because all of the promoting and the marketing has got to be done by you.
Yep.
And you're out there in a sea of indie work, and
I've given up.
It's very difficult. It's difficult. So, I mean, I do it for the love of it, to be honest. I mean, it's just in me to write music. And my take on it, it's always been this way too. I've always said that if you can write one song on an album that resonates with somebody. So if somebody finds, out of the 9 or 10 songs, if they find one song that they really like, then you did your job.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. You're not going to write an album of songs where most people are going to say, "Oh, I love every single song that's on the album." No, it's impossible, because there's all of these different tastes and whatnot that go into what people like in
Some
their
days you
music.
might like one song better than another song, and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff as well, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, I have songs that I wrote that I clearly like better than other songs that I wrote, and I'm the guy that's the songwriter,
hi.
you know. And on this album, I purposely put 10 songs on, because 10 is the number of new beginnings.
Okay.
That's why I did that. So yeah, but I really appreciate you taking the time out. I didn't expect that we would play samplings of the songs, but I'm glad we did that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, just give people a wee flavour so they can go away and get into the songs. I made a CD up because you sent me the tracks, so I burned
Yeah.
a copy off and played them in my car. So I enjoyed that, getting played at full blast around Central Scotland yesterday.
Very good. Yeah.
So we're at a gala day in a local town. But yeah, the car journey was the best part about it, with your tracks on. My girlfriend likes to take photographers of these events, and then people dressing up and that kind of thing. It's quite good, but you see people in the streets at 9 o'clock drinking their beer, you know. So we left at 3, but usually by 7 the police are getting called somewhere.
I'm sure, if you're starting that early.
That's a Scottish gala day.
A pandemonium by 7 o'clock.
Basically. They have different towns over Scotland around at this time of year to get there one day. So also you've released recently this Jordan Maxwell interview that you'd done back in the day, because I was going to bed one night, I was working the next day, and like 12 o'clock I've seen this thing, I was like, oh, I have to start watching this, and then 20 minutes later I was like, I need to put this off. But yeah, because it's compelling. But tell us a little bit about this interview, because I wasn't aware. I thought you maybe released this one before and I wasn't aware of it. It's just the first one you put to the public with you and Jordan talking.
Yeah, so the interviews and the discussions that I had with Jordan, and my brother joined me on some of them back in the early period of 2014. I think I released 4 or 5 interviews I did with Jordan that were, we felt good about releasing.
Right.
But this one, going back to May of 2014, I connected with him, and he says, "Yeah, Mike, I'll come on and we'll talk." And in that particular evening, he was just not in a good frame of mind. And like I said, my brother was on that interview with me, and we were both surprised at how pessimistic it was. We're going back 9 years now.
Yeah.
And so the next day, Jordan wrote me and he said, "Mike, do me a favor." He goes, don't release that interview.
Right.
And the primary reason was not because it was he thought it was pessimistic or negative. It was because he was really concerned about talking about the government.
Yeah, he said he wasn't going to talk about them, then he did.
Then he did. And so what a lot of people don't know, and if they do know it, they play it off like it's not anything to be concerned about. But if it happened to them, they would be very concerned about it. So, Jordan told me, not in that particular conversation, but another one. And it was a conversation, I believe, before that particular discussion, that he had received a knock on the door at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning by 2 guys in suits that were with the government. And he said, he gets this knock on the door, and he opens the door, and they said, "Are you Jordan Maxwell?" And he says, "Yes, I am." And they told him to shut his mouth about talking about the government, talking about admiralty law.
Right.
Because if he didn't stop talking about it, he was going to have a big problem. This is what Jordan told me, and I have no reason to believe that it was hyperbole. I mean, the way he was telling the story, it happened. He got a knock on the door. I had one person in the comment section, it just amazes me how some people, what they're, where their train of thought goes and how they apply logic. But they said, hey, I say things that are 1,000 times more controversial than Jordan, and I never got a knock on the door. Well, nobody knows who you are.
Yeah.
If your 1,000 times more controversial comments are in Facebook or the comment section of YouTube, you're right. Nobody's going to knock on your door because nobody's reading that and nobody cares.
Yep.
But when you're a person that had a radio show, who was doing podcasts and was going around the world doing lectures and seminars and publishing your work, then you have reach, you have an audience. And Jordan had a very significant audience. He had a very large following. And I didn't agree with everything that Jordan presented, but I had a lot of respect for a lot of the work that he put forth. And I did, for 4 years, I did have a number of conversations with him, and we had, I don't want to say it was like a beer drinking friendship, but we had a friendship from the perspective of we would be able to Skype together and have a conversation and talk about whatever. In fact, he told me some very funny stories, and that'll be in the future another maybe Jordan Maxwell piece of audio that I'll put out. So in any case, I told Jordan, okay, no problem. We won't publish that particular interview. And I think we did a mulligan. It's a long time ago. We're going back 9 years ago. And so we did another show, and he felt much better about that one. And, we went with that. So I was going back through my archives because I have a Jordan Maxwell file on my computer. And when he had passed away back on March 23rd of last year, I did a video, a short tribute to him, which I was surprised more people in the truth community didn't do, which was kind of astonishing to me. It was very disappointing, in fact. And I had said that, I have audio and recordings that Jordan and I did that, what I would look to do when I had time was to put some of this stuff out. So I went back and I listened to the one that I did put up recently. And I really debated whether I was going to put it out because I knew people were going to say that it was very pessimistic and it was negative, and he sounded very, very down and sour. But the reason why I said, you know what, I think I will put it out, and because what Jordan was expressing was a feeling that many of us who were in the quote truth community, I actually refer to it as the perspective community, I'll call it the alternative and conspiracy research community, that we feel that you've dedicated an awful lot of time to doing the research, publishing the research, and in return, what you get a lot of is a lot of ridicule.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, honestly, it's unbelievable.
A lot
the
of
more effort
ridicule.
and kind of the more success you get, the more abuse you get, and then you start to get shut down and everything. So, I don't know. It's a hard game to play, basically.
It is a very hard game to play. And what you're seeing is that the rate and pace of the awakening, no matter how hard you're working to get information out, it doesn't, sometimes on some days, it doesn't seem like you're making a dent.
I think the thing with Jordan, well, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, but you think you're doing things like I lost my job through fighting COVID, and you're making these stances, and then as Jordan was saying, it's you that gets the shit for it, not that everyone else that's making the comments or that. It's like, hold on a minute, I've lost my job. There's no one here to support me, or this is on me.
Right.
But I've got my integrity. But right now,
that's right. And that's what he spoke about, and that's something that I have talked about because I have run up against the same thing. This is the whole bit where you're doing all this research, you're putting your heart and soul into it, you're presenting it, you're connecting dots, you're trying to show people. It's like see, spot, run, and they don't see, spot, run. It's entertainment for them. I call it conspiratainment. And once the presentation or the lecture or the seminar, whatever it is that you're putting out is done, they go back and they go do whatever it is they do in the matrix to continually enable the exact thing that we're trying to express to them to not enable.
Yeah.
And like I said, and then there's a lot of ridicule, and there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks. There's a lot of people that have opinions, and they speculate, and their speculation in their mind is fact. They don't put themselves out there, and they have no idea what it's like to be a Jordan Maxwell, or to be a Billy Watson, or to be me, or to be a Crow, or to be a Mark Devlin, or just pick anybody that's out there that's, putting out what I consider to be, some good work. And like you said, Billy, the more reach you have, the larger your audience is, the bigger a target you become. Plain
Somebody
and
mentioned
simple.
recently that thinks every conspiracy theorist with an audience has some kind of agent watching them. As an agent associated to you and to me, to kind of make sure what we're doing. If it gets certain things happen, then they'll fire it up the chain.
Yeah, there's no doubt that that's very, very possible. That if you're out there and you're exposing something or discussing something, and you're making a lot of sense and you're connecting dots, you're going to get their attention.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question that goes on. And one of the main things that they do to try to derail you it's the whole trolling aspect of the work that you put out. A lot of these comments that come in, their sock puppet accounts on YouTube and BitChute and Odyssey, even Rumble, where I'm convinced that, of course, we have people that are just dumbbells, that they just can't think, so they don't make any sense in the comment section, or it's just this low functioning aspect of society that expresses themselves. But there are also, I believe, paid trolls and bots and so on that are there to try to undermine the message.
Of these people, no?
Yes, it's definitely in play, and I get it a lot with the Beatles stuff because that's a sacred cow to so many, and it's not just the fact that it's a sacred cow to so many, to the masses' belief of what the Beatles were and are, but the Beatles are also a big piece of the social engineering that took place and is still taking place to transform society and the culture and move it in the direction that the controllers want to take it. I mean, the Beatles really are the Pied Pipers of the eon example. Of the Eon of Horus. I mean, that's what they are, the Pied Pipers of the Eon of Horus. So I'll tell you a little story. I'll get back to Jordan. I know another researcher. I'm not going to say who it is, but they had obtained some information out of Sony, who holds the publishing rights to the Beatles music. And at least I believe they still do, but at the time they did. And this information had to do with copyrights and publishing, and but they shouldn't have had this information. Obviously, it was gotten by somebody who worked inside of the company, inside of Sony. So what happened was Sony obviously figured out that this information was extracted, and so the person that now had this information in their hands was notified by Sony Legal. Now, how do I know this? Because the person that this happened to told me this is what happened. Okay, so I'm going to take their word for it. I have no reason, again, to believe that they're telling me a story. In any case, it was all resolved. This person had to show up with their own attorney, and so everything got squared away. But this person told me that during the conversations with the Sony attorneys, the question of my channel came up, my Paul is Dead channel came up. And I guess the question that was asked was, I don't understand, you're all concerned about, I have this piece of information, but what about Mike? I mean, he's exposing and taking people through a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
And they said, well, we're well aware of Mike's channel.
Right.
Okay. But they said, but if we take his channel down, if we do something to sabotage the channel, then that's only going to validate
Yeah.
his message and the work that he's putting out there.
Yeah.
So if we torpedo, Mike's ship, then that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows and a lot of questions, and it could make a situation worse on the part of Billy's machine. So
Yeah.
just leave it alone. Now, why did I bring that up? It's because it goes back to what you were saying. They're watching.
Yeah.
They do have eyes on I think on certain people who are putting certain information or research out there. Now, if it's nonsense stuff and it has no semblance of the truth, or it's way off target, then they're not going to waste any time. But if somebody's flying near the target, then I do think that they're going to put a focus on it. So, Jordan, obviously, he was flying over the target a lot when he was talking about the occult. His research really was esoteric. He was into esoteric research. And so when he was getting into religion, symbolism, the government, admiralty law, when he's talking about all that stuff, that got people's attention. Other aspects of it where he talked about, aliens and stuff like that, the Anunnaki, because he was very good friends with Zecharia Sitchin. A lot of people probably don't know that. Probably less so. That's a little more, it's kind of mythology type of stuff, and they're not going to worry too much about that. But when you start talking about admiralty law and how that works, I'm using that as an example. One could make an argument that the knowledge of admiralty law fed the free man movement, where people are saying, "Hey, I'm a sovereign person.
Right.
I'm not bound by your admiralty contract law, maritime law,
the birth certificate,
your birth certificate, straw man, and all that stuff." And this is the stuff that Jordan was talking about. And whether people know it or not, a lot of folks built upon that as foundational to their own research, and they took it even further.
Yep.
But still, we have to remember, in 2014, Jordan was in the research business for over 50 years. And there weren't a lot of people back then. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were folks that were putting research out. I wrote some names down, like G. Edward Griffin, John Coleman, Eustace Mullins, William Cooper, Myron Fagan, but it wasn't to the magnitude of what we have today, because they didn't have the delivery vehicle. We didn't have the internet. They didn't have the internet back then to be able to disperse their information the way we can today. There was no social media back then, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on. So, and the other thing is that the other reason why, Jordan was having a very difficult time back then, there was a point in time when he was doing all right financially. And then he entered into a business transaction, signed some contracts that
decimated
deep sixed him financially. And, when I spoke to him about it, he reluctantly admitted that he should have paid a lot more attention to what he signed, the terms and conditions. And he fought a legal battle for a very long time, and I don't think he ever won it. I mean, there was a kind of a pseudo resolution at the end of the day, but the way this contract worked that he signed, it was a business agreement. What ended up happening was the other party that he executed the contract with, they ended up owning his brand,
Right.
which means that, they owned it. They owned his name, because his real name is Russell Pine.
Right.
I don't know if people know that, but Jordan Maxwell was his AKA, or his alias, for doing the work that he did. So he lost the ability to market the brand of Jordan Maxwell. He lost the ability to sell his own merchandise, his own DVDs, which contained his seminars, his lectures, and his research. He lost his website.
Yep.
he lost the ability to go out and to do seminars or to do lectures unless he had received permission from the party that he contracted with to be able to do so.
Uh-huh.
So now, if I remember correctly, and I'm going back about 2018, so 5 years ago, I think what happened was the court finally said, okay, from this point forward, it's yours, Jordan Maxwell. From that point back, no. Because there's a signed contract, there's an agreement that, you entered into.
Yeah.
So, he was able to move forward with his brand at a certain point, but it financially, it pulled the rug out from under him. So when we did that interview, that was a piece that was still looming over his head, was that whole legal issue. So, you have that, you have coupled with the fact that he's receiving a lot of ridicule over time for his work. People are not waking up. He was very, very disappointed with how people were not waking up to the truth. And this is why he would always say, if people understood how the world really worked, he would always emphasize that, how it really worked. And so, and in that interview that I put up, he knew where it was going. He knew about, even in that interview, he said, look, I can take you down right now to where they are performing satanic rituals. He said it during that particular interview. He gave a specific location, and, some people will say, oh, he never named names. The problem is when you start naming names, there's two things that are in play, okay? Lawsuits. Even if it's true, the machine that's behind the people that you're going to name could cause you a tremendous problem legally. That's number one. That's just the legal ramifications of being tied up in court for defamation. Even if it's true, the possibility that you're going to get hit with a defamation lawsuit is very high. And you want to get involved in that? Most people are going to say, yeah, not really, because it's very costly, very costly. The other thing is you start naming people and you get too close, like I said, to the target, you will wind up in an alley somewhere, not breathing. And of course, a lot of people, they don't understand this because they're not putting themselves out there. They're not out there. They're listening, and maybe they're doing some research and so on. Maybe they're doing a lot of research, but they are not a public figure like he was, and how so many others. I mean, look at Bill Cooper, William Cooper.
Well, they said they were going to kill him, and again, that whole thing was totally set up. He was called outside, wasn't he? So there's a delivery or something.
Yeah, at his house. At his house, and they shot him.
Cold blood.
Cold blood, yeah. So, this is the type of thing that people have to understand that goes on. I mean, this is not, these controllers, I mean, they're playing for keeps. They're playing for keeps, and so anyway, so when I put that up there, it was basically a little bit of an experiment. It was to test the waters to see what kind of response we would get in the comment section. And it was as I expected. There were those that absolutely got it and understood where it was coming from. And then there were those that, they want to mock and they want to poke fun and, and so on. So, what does that tell us, Billy? It tells us that we have a long way to go. If there's ever going to be a convergence where we're able to turn this ship around from a critical mass of the population. In other words, that a critical mass of the population gets together, pulls together, they converge, they drop all their petty disagreements, and they look at the big picture and able to steer the ship in the right direction. And what it says, based upon the comments that I saw in the comment section, is, we're still very far away from ever achieving that. And that's why, going back several years ago, I came out and said, this is an individual journey. I abandoned we're going to get a mass shift in consciousness. I mean, if your consciousness hasn't shifted after the March 2020 event and everything that's followed, and you're still thinking that, you know, there's a left-right paradigm, there's Republicans and Democrats, and you don't understand that there is an overarching uh, powerful entity steering this ship. You don't understand that there's an internationalist apparatus that's governing the world. And you don't understand that there are all of these secret societies and the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, are real. You don't want to believe that there's a black nobility and there's a Vatican, and you want to believe that the FBI is looking out for you. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I just put a video up. I think it was yesterday, maybe this morning, where Jimmy Dore reported on the World Health Organization said that the European Union signed on to the digital passports.
I thought COVID was finished. What's for future pandemics?
It's unbelievable.
Pandemic, we do.
So where's you tell me, was there any resistance? Was there any outcry to the fact that the WHO came out and just announced this? And I mean, as far as I know, you tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't live there. Is this a done deal?
Well, pretty much, yeah. It just comes up and then that's it. And where do you protest this one? I can't see anywhere. That guy, the head of the WHO, forget his name. I try not to remember their names. But there's pictures of him, like, looking extremely gay, shall we say, flaunting it around everywhere. It's just like, we're taking orders. This is a guy that's controlling the world's health, this muppet, But I think the point Jordan was making, though, and his main frustration was that humanity cannot solve this. There's no hope for humanity. And what you're saying, you've got a long way to go. I'm of the same opinion. I think whether there's a power outage or whatever, shit's got to go completely tits up and many people dying. And then that'll be the order out of chaos, because the chaos is getting presented. Maybe their order will not get created, but at some point, everything's got to fall for people to pick up the pieces and build something new. Because I can't see us ever, during the COVID thing, and I was like shouting from the rooftops, you got to do this, sovereignty, blah, blah. Maybe some aspects of sovereignty will come into it if you're out of this matrix when they come to your door and try to lock you away, if that gets to that point. But really, it takes us all. Well, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to take us all to stand up, because we're not capable of doing it. It's going to take the system to fall for people to say, right, what are we going to do now then?
I mean, Jordan knew that humanity spends all of its time throwing rocks at each other, and they don't see the big picture. Most people don't want to see the big picture. They're unaware of it. If they are somewhat aware of it, they go into denial. There's cognitive dissonance. There's apathy. They don't make anything kinetic. They're perfectly satisfied being followers and not leaders. And and I presented this so many times, and I've said so many times, and of course he knew this, because, like I said, the brunt of his research was esoteric, but the controllers are occultists, and what they're implementing. And Billy, you and I've talked about this in a previous show, is Aleister Crowley's Aeon of Horus. It's the new Eon, and it is the Eon of Horus is somewhat synonymous with the Age of Aquarius. Basically, look at it this way: it's their version of the Age of Aquarius. That's,
I was going to say, are they hijacking the Age of Aquarius?
They're hijacking it, right? And I've said this before: everything they do is not natural. It's not organic. Everything they do is engineered and manufactured. It's all orchestrated, and it cuts across the natural order. And with the Aeon of Horus, if we go back to Crowley's book 77, when he talks about applying your will, man has the absolute right to do this and that based upon his or her will. People will point to that and say, see, he's talking about that's where we are going. The masses are going. No, wrong, incorrect. Huh. Crowley was part of the elite structure. He's talking about where the elites are going, where the initiates and the adepts of their mystery religion, or their version of the mystery religion, their application of the ancient mysteries. Because I don't want people to misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the ancient Egyptian mysteries or any of the ancient mysteries were bad. It's how they have manipulated and applied their intentions to the mysteries or the hidden or occulted knowledge. That's what's going on, and they're using it for nefarious reasons. They're manipulating it in order to achieve their outcomes and their agenda, which does not coincide with good things for humanity. It does not. So, in his book 77, Crowley says at the very end, for those that are not initiated, they will be our slaves.
Right.
That's what it says in book 77, folks. Is one page.
Right.
You can read it and look at the very bottom. It's spelled out. And the whole philosophy and the tenets of Luciferianism, it's based in Crowley's religion of Thelema. So when people run around saying that Luciferianism doesn't have any doctrines or doesn't have any quote holy books, that's not entirely true. In my opinion, I believe that Thelema, the religion of Thelema, is the basis of their spiritual philosophy, which goes back to the mysteries, especially the Egyptian mysteries. But it's a misuse of the mysteries. That's what it is. It's a misuse of you and I talked about this building before we started, the archetypes that are out there and the symbolism and the metaphysics that are out there,
I'm just thinking of all the performers and stuff. You obviously do the old one-eyed symbolism with the eye of the Horus,
Yeah.
So there's, again, one aspect of it being in your face, but if you're just one of the slaves and sheep, you don't see these things. So they're kind of the whole Freemasonry, to begin with, some people say it was kind of a good thing, kind of the knowledge, and it's been infiltrated,
Yes.
So there is a kind of, they think of themselves as higher minds than just the chattel. So therefore it's their responsibility, because people are not clever enough, they've not been through these things, In one way, they could be right. Maybe this planet is lots of different consciousness, but to me, they're making people dumber in the schooling systems. We should be raising people up, not hoarding secret information. It's for everyone to have access to, which the internet did do in some ways, but again, people choose what to focus on, and humanity seems to just focus towards shite, a lot of it.
I think initially, like with the formation of the United States, because it was the Freemasons that created the United States, they say that the U.S. was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, but it really wasn't. It was based upon the principles of Freemasonry and of the founding fathers, and the population itself may have had Judeo-Christian beliefs, but the actual creation of the country was founded by Freemasons. And based upon my research, the founding fathers, their version of the country, or where they wanted to take the country, their vision was commandeered, and it was commandeered by the Babylonian priesthood, the Radnites, the tribe. Okay, so we can try to keep this on YouTube, right? And so it's been all downhill from there. In fact, it was George Washington, I believe, who wrote papers warning about, the quote, the Illuminati, or that version of the Illuminati that was extremely destructive and looking to dismantle the very vision that the original founding fathers had envisioned for the United States. And in fact, Jordan even says that, the United States was really an experiment that lasted about 100 years.
Right.
And then it collapsed with the Civil War, because the international bankers were behind the Civil War. It wasn't about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about dismantling the United States and what it represented at the time. And then the Act of 1871 etched out sovereign land for the District of Columbia, which is a sovereign city-state, just like the inner city of London and just like the Vatican. So the fact that our government in the United States sits on sovereign land, a sovereign city-state, says that we are under foreign occupation. And we have been since 1871. And the big lever that they pulled was the Federal Reserve Act, which I think was passed in 1913. And that was really the beginning of the end, the real beginning of the end, when the Federal Reserve Act was enacted. But the one thing I wanted to talk about, we touched on it a little bit, is the whole eye symbolism. I mentioned it earlier.
And I just told you that we can come back to that because I just want to
Go ahead.
Briefly. Jordan mentioned about the banks, and you've got to know who really are the banks. And it says they're the insurance companies. And it kind of says that America and the insurance company, it's the United States of Insurance Companies or something like that, he said. Do you know what he was getting at there?
Yeah, I think he was talking about, what I think he was talking about was companies like BlackRock.
Right.
That's what I was thinking, that, they control, it's like these big hedge funds.
Right.
Financially, they control everything. Yeah. And so, you need to do research into BlackRock. In fact, I put a post up on my blog that was a documentary on BlackRock, and maybe what I'll do is I'll send you the link and we can put that in the show notes. So that's what I think he was talking about. What we have to understand is with this whole thing, it's a pyramid structure. So whenever you're looking at one piece of it, there's another tier above it. And then when you get to that tier, there's another tier. And then, of course, he also mentioned the fact that the world is run by unseen forces.
Yeah, we mentioned that as well. Yeah, the reptiles and stuff.
And I believe he's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And if we take a look at, if we go back to David Lynch's Twin Peaks, the one that he did in 1990, he has the character Bob, and Bob he's Diablo. He's the devil. He's represents Satanism, and it's the control over humans to do evil things. And in his 2017 series, Twin Peaks series, he showed, it was one episode that had to do with the Trinity test bomb, the detonation of the atomic bomb at the Trinity test site, and how that had a chain reaction. And what it did was it collapsed reality. And by doing that, what it did was it brought in entities. It brought in, whatever you want to call them, negative entities, demonic entities that weren't supposed to be here. And what they did was they pierced the veil. And by doing that, they opened a doorway, a portal, to let them in. Now, some people believe that's exactly what CERN is doing, too. That's opening up portals.
Jack Parsons and someone else.
Yes, Jack Parsons.
Back then, done that. They had an experiment that they opened up a portal and couldn't get it shut. And Alistair Crowley, apparently, he left Boleskine House with a portal open one time.
Yes, yeah. So, of course, there are going to be those that are listening to us, and they're not going to believe this stuff. It's okay if you don't believe it. Maybe it's not okay, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, because you've got to get to a point where you have to understand how this reality really works. What are the components, and what's really going on? And it's way, way beyond the five senses, way beyond that. It's not just what you can see, touch, smell. It's not just that. It goes way, way beyond that.
Just to mention BlackRock, did you see the interview or the quote, the clip recently of the head of BlackRock saying we need to change behaviours?
Yeah.
It's just, that's what we need to do. I'm the guy to decide what behaviours will be changed, so we need to change them. That's what we're doing.
Right. Well, that's what's behind this whole, what they call ESG. Now it's ESCG. So it's environmental, social, corporate governance. And this is something that is all of these multinational corporations and even medium-sized corporations that they're bound by. because
Oh, yeah.
it's emanating out of the banking system. So if you don't sign up to ESG or ESCG, it's now ESCG, environmental, social, corporate governance, then you're cut off from a banking perspective, liquidity.
So this
They're
is how they
just
get Target and all these other companies to put in the pride shit everywhere they go, because you don't put that in where you're not meeting these credit scores, then you don't qualify for this. So it's not necessarily these companies. It's the same with the masks for the COVID thing. Companies, they're all doing the same thing.
right,
There must be a controlling body somewhere
right.
pointing at that thing, making sure that they all.
Yeah. So what ESG? It's basically look at it as a checklist, and there are different social engineering initiatives, and these corporations, they sign up and say, "Yea, verily, we'll sign up for climate change.
Yeah.
Yea, verily, we'll sign up for uh, transgender. Yea,
Yes.
verily, we'll sign up for LGBTQ. Yea, verily, we'll sign up for quotas for hiring certain groups. Not whether these people are qualified for the jobs. It's to be able to fill quotas so that they can say that they are inclusive and representative of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Now, and if these companies don't sign up for it, if they don't sign on the dotted line, then the spigot from a banking perspective is going to be shut off. So what do? I mean, companies need loans.
Yeah.
They have to work with banks transactionally. So that's how all of these companies implement the same exact social engineering agendas across the world, because they're all participating in this initiative coming through the banking system, coming through the deep state, through the Committee of 300 and above, called ESG or ESCG. And this is how it works.
Yeah.
People are wondering, how come all of these companies are participating in this? Why are they all putting up the same signs and they all have the same banners and all that stuff? That's why.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking just to get back to, we were going to mention the eye symbolism before we wrap up.
Yeah. So I just want to point out that what the controllers have done, folks, is they have commandeered symbolism. We're talking about spiritual symbolism. We're talking about metaphysical symbolism, sacred geometry. They've taken this and they've made people believe it's theirs, that it's proprietary to them. And by doing that, especially for a lot of those folks that are awake or in the truth community or alternative research community, they've come to believe that whenever they see the eye, or they see the eye within a triangle, or they see the triangle, that's evil. And it's not. It's not evil. The triangle, as an example, is an archetype. So in Catholicism and Christianity, the triangle represents the Holy Trinity. In many cultures, it represents the mother, the father, and the child. In other cultures, it represents knowledge, wisdom, and enlightenment. So what they've done is they've made you fearful of a symbol, of a triangle. And that's to keep you away from it. That's to keep you from using that type of archetype to your own benefit, to the benefit of humanity.
Some people even use pyramids to grow things under or sit inside with energy. There's like geometrical reasons for these symbols as well, tied into the universe,
Yes. Yeah, let me just read something here, Billy. So because I always get this question. So here's my first album, folks, okay? Leaving Dystopia. And you can see it's the eye within the triangle. And, a lot of people looked at this and they said, oh, Mike's a Freemason. Mike's with the Illuminati. What's going on there? He's an agent. He's this, he's that. And that's not the case at all. So let me just read something real quick here from my website. it says, why, what does the eye within the pyramid mean? And I said, I'm often asked about the cover art from my album, Leaving Dystopia. The triangle or the pyramid represents the four elements of earth, air, water, and fire, as well as the Holy Trinity and the creative principle. The eye represents the creator. These sacred symbols have been misused by the cultic elite, the controllers, and people with negative and misguided intent. The symbolism on my album is meant to present the symbols in their proper context. Leaving dystopia means rejecting the societal and cultural dysfunction that surrounds us and coming back to our inner being and divine purpose. You know, so when we talk about the triangle, let me just show this here, Billy. Hopefully we can see this. Okay, so what do you mean, Mike? It represents fire, earth, air, and water. So take a look. Can you see it, Billy?
Yeah, it's back to front, but we can get the gist of it.
All right. So the triangle, whether it's upright or it's pointing up or it's pointing down, and you can see with air and earth, it has a line near the top, near the capstone.
Yep.
Those are the four elements. Those are the four elements responsible for creation. And then below it, we see, what do we see? Well, it's what some would refer to as the Star of David. But what it really is the unity or the balance of all that is. But you can see how it has been commandeered.
Yeah.
So the triangle represents the elements, and then people are afraid of the triangle. So what I've done two things with my albums, especially my first one and my third one, my most current, No More Gods. By showing the triangle and showing the eye, I'm putting my message behind that symbolism, which is in direct opposition to their message. They're talking about lies and deception and leading people off a cliff. And I'm talking about taking back our authority, taking back our power, being empowered again, and moving forward as sovereign human beings and sovereign souls. So they're using the symbol for one purpose, their purpose. I'm using it for my purpose. And some people might look at it and even say that what I'm doing is I'm poking at them. They're using it, like I said.
Yeah, well, they're doing it to us, so.
For their intentions. And I'm saying, hey, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm reclaiming that symbolism. That's not your symbolism. Like you've done with everything else. You've stolen it.
Everything else, yeah. Like money could have been originally our Bradbury pound or something, or
right.
Rally sticks or something. It's just a means of exchange where they're claiming it's official government money. We can only issue it. And it says who.
Right. Right. And I'll just finish up with the eye real quick, because that's another one. As soon as people see the eye, they're like, oh my God, he's showing the eye. He's with the Illuminati. In fact, a friend of mine, Steve, who runs a Paul is Dead page, he put my new album up on that page, and he said there were people that were just flailing because they saw the eye and it said Mike's a Freemason, he approves, he's with the Illuminati and all this stuff, and it's just ignorance. And we have to come out of the state of ignorance, folks. We have to get out of it. All right. So the all-seeing eye is the eye of providence, and it's typically featured as an eye surrounded by rays of light, often enclosed in a triangle. And the word providence refers to divine guidance given by a deity or God, source, or the creator. Eyes have been a popular symbol since ancient times, as they symbolize watchfulness, protection, and omnipotence. Eyes have had a strong symbolic meaning and used for centuries in numerous cultures, traditions, and religious contexts with many variations. Similarities can be traced back to Egyptian mythology and symbolism, such as the Eye of Horus and the Eye of Ra. And as I mentioned, folks, when we go back to the ancient mysteries, because it's mysteries doesn't mean it's bad. Mysteries just means occulted and hidden. And what the controllers have done is to take the mysteries and to corrupt them and to use them for their own nefarious, selfish reasons. In fact, Manly P. Hall, in his book, the was it the ancient or the secret symbols of all ages? I forgot the actual title of the book. It's very thick. But in that book, when I read it many years ago, he said that what they did, what the controllers did, was to take divine aspects of reality, symbolism, archetypes, and they turned it dark. That's Manly P. Hall. He's telling us this. And you can take a look for yourself. Let me see. Similarities can be traced back to the Egyptian mythology. The word eye has many meanings, from an organ that detects light, detecting light, to the symbolic eye with its many metaphors that link to conscious awareness. In Christianity, the triangle symbolizes the doctrine of Trinity, and the eye represents the unity of the three aspects of God. And of course, the eye itself within the triangle represents the creator, God, source. I mentioned that the triangle represents the four elements of nature: fire, air, earth, and water. And we have also the eyes of Buddha, which represent is symbolic of peace, harmony, wisdom, and consciousness. And in Hinduism, the eye is regarded as the third eye. So this is something that we really have to start to understand, and not allow the allow the controllers to create a superstition within us based upon conditioning, as they portray these symbols as if they own them and they are the proprietors of this symbolism.
Wizard of Oz stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're just fucking trying to put up this smoke screen and this big illusion.
They steal everything. They invert everything. This is what we have to understand. So we have to take this stuff back, and don't relinquish, and don't cower, and don't crawl around on your hands and knees, and don't say stupid things like, if somebody's showing that it means that this person is a Freemason, or they're in a secret society, or they're with the Illuminati and they're working for the dark side. It's
Yeah, I mean, I got it for wearing a t-shirt by a group called Aston Mother's Temple, and I was doing these shooting at shit shows, and then the people that just woke up at that time,
yeah,
they were accusing my girlfriend of that being satanic, and she was crying about it.
I know.
Crazy.
Well, this is what we talked about before, right? This is some of the stuff that Jordan was talking about. I mean, you talk about this stuff, you present it. I'm presenting it from my perspective in a way to empower my message, because there is a belief that the eye, the watchfulness of the eye, actually brings goodness to the endeavors of the person brings power, I should say, to the endeavor of the person that is utilizing the symbol. So obviously they would be using it to put power behind what it is they're doing, which is they're up to no good. And for people like myself and others, yourself, Billy, we're using it to put forth and empower our message in the direction that we would like to take the world.
Like I used to, my first two wives were in Turkey, and my son's there just now. So, but when I used to go there a lot, I got the Turkish evil eye. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah.
So I did get one of them. It's like an ornament thing, and I put it outside my house in Scotland. And I didn't think, I'm part of some Illuminati now. It's like, because it's the ward of evil spirits.
Yes.
The kind of tradition of it.
Yeah.
So there's a good aspect of using the eye, to keep people away.
Yeah. People have to become more aware, more well-rounded. They have to be better researched, more knowledgeable, and contain, and with that, you contain more wisdom. You understand more about what this is all about, versus you're just hovering in the corner in that profane state. Because when you're cowering and you're operating in a profane way, you're giving the controllers a blank check to continue to do what it is they're doing. And that's not a good thing.
No, it's basically having a backbone. People have lost that ability to say no and think for themselves. So it's really just a program, and that's why I felt a lot of empathy or resonance with what Jordan and his state of mind. Because like fucking that's what it teaches you to when you try and help people, and kind of get nothing for thanks for it. And like, I've been studying this for 30 years, and they woke up for a day or two. You know what I mean? and they don't give you that respect of the stuff you might know, be able to help them with, and they judge you and slander you, and just like, oh, why did I bother?
Oh, I had comments where people were saying, "Oh, I can shoot holes in this." I'm like, really? Point us to your research.
Yeah.
Show us what you've done. What have you put out? You know, first of all, no researcher is infallible. That's the first thing you have to understand. We make mistakes, okay? The key is if you make a mistake, or if you find out something new, or there's new information that comes your way that trumps a position you had before. In other words, you change your position because the new information, it says, "Hey, I got to think differently because I didn't know about this." That's the sign of a good researcher. And it's not to say that Jordan knew everything. That wasn't to say that he wasn't infallible. He made mistakes, and there was some things he didn't get right. Like I've always said, I didn't agree with him on everything, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for the vast majority of the work that he put out, and the time, the effort, the energy that he put into it.
Yeah, he's certainly done his bit. There's no doubt about that. And I felt really sorry for him in his last few years because I was aware of that financial thing in his website and everything getting attacked. And he got a bit of help in the last couple of years, I think,
from Jay Widener.
Yeah.
So what happened was I had a call with one of the last calls I had with Jordan, and he was in his office at Gaia. Jay had gotten him a job at Gaia, and Gaia had said that they had promised to publish his work, and it was just a brand new day for Jordan. And I remember he was sitting behind this desk, and he was telling me, "Mike, I've got this job now. Jay Widener helped me get this," and he was beaming. He was beaming. I hadn't seen him that happy in the 4 years that I was having interaction with Jordan, and I was very, very happy for him. And unfortunately, after 2018, our paths kind of parted, and I was very sad to find out when he passed away last year. I think it was March 23rd he passed away. But in any case, I feel I feel honored that I did get to know him, and that for 4 years that we did have an ongoing conversation, periodically, and we shared our thoughts and stuff like that. So, in any case, but like I said, Billy, I put that particular interview up. I just wanted to see what the reaction of the folks would be.
Yeah, well, I think it's certainly a worthwhile addition to the internet. I enjoyed listening to it. And I learned a few things even in that chat, what Jordan was revealing and talking about. So, yeah, and you do a lot of great work yourself, so I'll tell you that while you're still alive. So thanks for all your efforts.
You too. I see you doing all these gigs and stuff like that. Sometimes I'm envious how you find your way around to all of these different conferences and stuff like that, Billy. But it's good stuff that you're doing. Yeah,
well, I'll just put my name forward, and then people say, "Oh, I've got a space, we can pay you for free." Is that all right? I'll say that's my fee.
Yeah, free is good, I guess. Everything I do is free.
Another one I put myself forward to. I think Mark Devlin, I see him promoting it, and I was like, I could fit in that bill. I'll give him a shout. So I'm in another one down in Lancashire in the end of August. A music set. I'm not very good at singing, but the lyrics humorous and conspiracy.
Yeah.
So
just do it. Just do it. Don't worry about it. Just have fun and do it. That's the thing. It's just the creative aspect, it doesn't matter, oh, I'm not a great musician. Doesn't matter. I'm not a great singer. Doesn't matter. Just go out there and do it.
Yeah, it's me. It's an experience, and I'm doing something. Why not? What else am I going to do that day and get some feedback out of the house? It's all right. Good. So great. Thanks for getting in contact, and I've really enjoyed having this chat. Hopefully we'll do another one in the not too distant future, but thanks for your time just now, Mike.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you so much for having me on, talking about the album especially, because that's a tough one to get people to sign up for.
Unfortunately, that's another thing. Like, I've done creative works, and people don't understand a lot of time and effort that goes into these things. I guess there's so much stuff for other people to buy, and people got little money and stuff like that. But even just having a listen and leaving a comment on a creative's work,
it
gives you some, I don't know if it's your ego or whatever, but still, it's like, it makes it worthwhile. I think because you're not doing it just
It does. It's
yourself,
great when somebody puts a thumbs up and says, "Hey, I like this track, or I like this tune, I like this or like that," or the message resonates. It's good,
Yeah, because you're not doing it just for yourself. You want people to hear it,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, thanks very much for your time, everyone else. We'll be back on Tuesday with Patrick Timpone, so look forward to that one, 7 o'clock. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.